Do paladins make really good casters? I would argue not so much, but we can really explore as to why with this experiment. I would say that paladins actually have a decent spell list and isn't honestly too terrible. It's certainly not the worst spell list. I would say that belongs to the artificer, which has no unique spells to itself and really just is a wizard light list. But the paladin does have a few hallmark spells that is exclusive to it and is offered a package that is terribly not that bad if you try to take out all the melee focus that it has. So let's go ahead and explore that and see if paladins really do make good spellcasters. Starting off, I'm going to say we're going to start off as a tiefling. That is a first for the channel and is something fairly unique and really important to what we see here. We're actually not going to go as a regular player's handbook tiefling, nor really any of the other variants that we see later on, but we're going to go with the Sword Coast Adventures Guide variant tiefling. And yes, this is commonly used to get access to the very busted wing tiefling, but we're actually going to use it for the Devil's Tongue. But first, let's go through some regular tiefling things. For the most part, it gets +2 to its ability score. You get to choose thanks to Tasha's. Age is not too crazy, alignment's whatever you like. Size is medium. Speed is a good old 30 feet. You get dark vision, which isn't too bad. And the unique features is the Hellish Resistance, which gives you resistance to fire damage, useful, can come up time to time, and allows you to speak Common and Infernal. You're not exactly allowed to choose, but in all honesty, makes sense given your background. Now, the variant Tiefling, you're able to replace one of the features with the unique ideas that is here for the variants. It, of course, does have a play on your appearance, which ultimately really you get to decide whatever you want to be, but you know, there's some fun ideas here and allows you to choose between the feral, the devil's tongue, the hellfire, and the winged. The reason why I really don't cover flying races in most of my videos, which makes them really the superior choice for most spellcasters, is the idea that they're usually banned at some tables. Of course, if they're available, take them, abuse them, and then get them banned at your table, but where it stands right now, I want to err on the side of caution and say that they already are banned. So we're going to take a look at the Devil's Tongue Tieflings in particular because it has some unique spells to it. It allows you to get Vicious Mockery as a cantrip, which ain't too bad. It allows you to get Charm Person at 3rd level. And of course, it gives you Enthrall at 5th level, which I'd argue is actually the weakest of these spells, but nice to have nonetheless. And of course, it forces Charisma as our spellcasting. Good news is, as a Paladin, that's not an issue. So we can go ahead and keep on moving. This is going to be our point buy right here. You're going to see that we're going to dump Strength, which is wild for a Paladin to take, but is one of those things that we might as well take advantage of while we got, because Paladins typically are multi-ability score dependent, or MAD for short, which means that they really require Strength. Of course, you want a decent Dexterity in 5e. Constitution, because you're usually in the front line. Thankfully, you can dump Wisdom and Intelligence, but you really don't want to dump Wisdom. And of course, you want Charisma if you want some decent spells that you aren't smiting with. Of course, like I said here, we can dump Strength, so it allows us to bump up our general scores a little bit better, and we're actually going to take our +2 and +1 to Charisma and Constitution respectively. That way it brings them to a good 16, which is going to be important for us. So, like I mentioned, we're going to start Paladin, and spoiler alert, we're going to spend the whole time as Paladin to see if they make a good spellcaster. But at level 1, we ain't got no spells. Instead, we're going to get Divine Sense, which is basically a detect evil and good. Naturally, it's not too bad, can be useful in some scenarios. You know, if you got vampires, you got zombies, you got something crazy afoot, this will allow you to explore it a little bit better. And of course, you get your good old Lay on Hands, which restores a number of HP from your Paladin level ×5. Always available, and you're able to dole them out as you wish. It's not too bad. In addition, you can also spend 5 of those points to cure a poison or disease, which isn't terrible. In all honesty, poisons are debilitating in this game, and diseases can be pretty nasty. Let's go on and pick up our Vicious Mockery that we get as a Tiefling, which, you know, is pretty darn nice. Not too bad. It's a cantrip that allows you to hit an enemy with a Wisdom saving throw. They take 1d4, and if you hit, of course, 1d4 is if you hit as well, they have disadvantage on the next attack roll it makes, and naturally scales with your level by itself. It's a good tool that bards get, so we might as well take advantage of it while we're here, especially since we got a good charisma score. Now, on to Paladin 2, total level 2, and we're going to get our boy, the reason we're here, spellcasting. Most interesting thing to note is that spellcasting is going to be based off charisma, as I mentioned. Not too much of an issue, given that we have that with our natural spells. And of course, it allows us not to ritual cast, but that's fine. Paladins don't really exactly have a ritual pool, if one at all, so we might as well just go for it. So yes, now we are able to cast our spells and are actually able to see if they are good spellcasters. We're going to pick up a fighting style. as is required with any paladin, and we're going to take advantage of one that I find is going to be very, very necessary for this build, and that is going to be Blessed Warrior. That allows you to pick 2 cantrips from the cleric spell list and allows you to use charisma as you're casting. We're going to pick up guidance because guidance is always good, always nice to have whenever you have a skill check going on. And of course, we're going to go for Toll of the Dead. Now, this is the one that we really need. If you find an enemy that has, or actually in general, you make an enemy make a wisdom saving throw, and they take 1d8 necrotic damage. Not too bad, not too shabby, especially for a cantrip. But if they already are missing damage, which they spend more time have taken damage than not, you instead do 1d12. That is better than most weapons in the game already, and we're able to do that at range. 60 feet is pretty darn good. And again, it scales with our level. We're going to take it, and that's going to be our main, basically, stick throughout this whole thing. It's going to be our main bread and butter when we're not focusing on a spell. We also pick up Divine Smite, which normally for a paladin would be the point. This is it. This is why you're a paladin. But for us, we're not going to spend any time in melee. So we're not able to use a spell slot to deal an additional 2d8. And it does hurt. That is a large amount of damage. It is one of the few things that I think all people agree is one of the best things to come out of melee. And the fact that we aren't able to use it does kind of hurt. But again, we're doing this more as a thought experiment than an actual optimization, sort of thing. Honestly, I would say at this stage, you're free to use both because Divine Smite at this level is dump trucks of damage. So if you find it to where, you're in melee, if you are going through with this sort of thing, Divine Smite isn't a terrible option, in all honesty. Again, you have your main weapons in Toll of the Dead and Vicious Mockeries, and those don't require spell slots. So go off. Do your thing. We are going to use our spell slots possibly on Bless if we're not using them on Divine Smite, because that allows us to give a 1d4 to any attack roll or saving throw. And this is really good for allies. This is really good. It really breaks the bounded accuracy of the game and allows most of our allies to hit attacks that they would miss. Now, 1 won't exactly do a lot, but 4, pretty darn impactful. We're also going to pick up Compelled Duel. This is, I believe, unique to the Paladin. And strangely enough, one of the only real tank spells of the game, and it allows you to make you target an enemy, make a wisdom saving, that they have to make a wisdom saving throw, and they have to attack you. They have disadvantage on attack rolls against anybody else, and have to make a wisdom save every time they move more than 30 feet away from you. So you lock them in. You zero in, and you're in the zone. You are fighting the plane. You are dueling it up, fisticuffs going in, which honestly is not too bad, considering, again, we have a good Constitution score. And while our strength isn't exactly very high, we can equip heavy armor if necessary. I mean, unless it has a certain restriction, but you know what I mean. We're also going to pick up Command. Now, Command is honestly a reason why I'd say we don't use Divine Smite. This is a spell to where you just have to spend 1 spell slot. You say 1 word command to an enemy, and again, they have to make another wisdom save. Our charisma is pretty darn good, especially at this level. They would have to do exactly what you say. Now, it can be from any of this list that you see here, or it could be something else that is a 1-word action that they have to follow to their best ability. Honestly, not too bad. If you make an enemy drop their weapon, you got a good idea of, you pretty much just took away their main striking power. You make them flee, you pretty much take them out of combat, at least for a round or two. And also you can make them grovel, make them fall prone, and which anybody loves that. Any melee, any rogue would absolutely go ham for. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of commanding your allies, your foes, your enemies to do whatever it is you desire. We're also going to pick up Cure Wounds. We do have Lay on Hands, but Cure Wounds is not too bad as another idea in case we need to quickly get somebody up, which Lay of Hands really does the same thing as well in case we burn through those and we need Cure Wounds. So it's good just to have on hand. Total Paladin level 3, total level 3, and we're going to keep on going. We're actually going to get something very nice here, but we'll explore that once we get there. We're going to pick up Divine Health, which makes us immune to disease. It comes up. It can be sometime. We're also going to pick up Harness Divine Power, which is something that we get from Tasha's that allows us to expend our Channel Divinity and get half of our proficiency bonus, rounded up, back in spell slots, which can be useful, especially since we are going as spellcaster-focused build. It's good to have a way to recur some spell slots back. But we're going to go Redemption Paladin for a subclass. Now, Paladin subclasses are interesting in that they not only give you class features, but they allow you to change how your Channel Divinity works, both of which are going to be pretty darn useful for us. We're going to pick the Redemption Paladin because it offers a strong set of control, which is really what you're looking for, especially when you're coming for a spellcasting sort of focus. I got the wizard brain. I got wizard brain. So the idea is that if you're a Redemption Paladin, you kind of have to follow these tenets, or else you'll break your vow, and that is very important. So you may want to find a way to integrate that into your characters. One of the few asks that D&D really does ask for its character players. But a Redemption Paladin, as I mentioned before, has some very interesting Channel Divinities. Of course, like I mentioned, all the other oaths have the ability to use 2 of them, and as do we, so let's go ahead and explore that a little bit. So we get Emissary of Peace, which allows us to use our Channel Divinity to give us a +5 to persuasion checks for the next 10 minutes. Not too shabby, especially with our high charisma score. We're able to use that to really take advantage of any sort of social scenario and able to manipulate it as we need. And of course, the combat feature is the Rebuke the Violent. If an enemy attacks anybody else within 30 feet of us, we can use our reaction to make them make a wisdom saving throw. That's going to be a big, big thing throughout here. And they have to take damage equal to the damage they take. And if they fail, they still take half the damage. In other words, you're enabling a surefire amount of damage to an enemy that chooses to attack anybody else but you. Almost like an off tank, to where you're allowed to be towards the front with all your good amount of HP and constitution, and again, heavy armor if you choose to put it on, take it off for a battle. But this also gives you another tool to peel off of enemies to where they won't exactly attack your allies as much as anybody else, especially your squishiest ones. We're going to pick up Charm Person. Charm Person is a nice spell. We get that from our Devil's Tongue lineage. And that allows us to make a wisdom saving throw against a person, and they become friends with us for the next hour. Pretty darn good for social scenarios. And we're going to get Sanctuary and Sleep from our Oath of Redemption spells. I would actually argue these are some of the 2 weakest that the class offers, but not too shabby, not too bad. Specifically Sanctuary I'm really looking at. If an enemy tries to attack you, they have to make a wisdom save, and if they lose, then they have to go find somewhere else. They have to F off and go find something else to do. And Sleep really isn't too hot at this level. By now, enemies are ending up with a good chunk of HP. We're looking at maybe 20s, maybe 30s. And the maximum pool we get for Sleep is 40, which allows you to reduce the enemy's HP total and put them to sleep, which normally is pretty debilitating, especially at early levels. But the pool is so small, and we're already kind of quickly outgrowing that. So it's here, it's there, but oh well. We get it for free, so it's not like it's an issue. We're going to go total level 4, Paladin level 4, and we're going to get our ASI. I know, crazy early, especially for my videos. Crazy how that works. We're going to pick up the Telekinetic feat. Now, this allows us to, of course, be a half feat. That allows us to get a +1. We're going to take it to our Charisma, make it a 17. I know all you odd fans out there are seething at that. It's okay. We'll bump that as much as we can. It allows us to get Mage Hand as well as a cantrip. And this also allows us to be able to shove an enemy with a bonus action if they fail a wisdom save. I know, something different than a wisdom save. And push them 5 feet away. And this is useful for any enemy that is stuck on an ally that may be, not really necessarily wanting any sort of ranged ally, or some sort of, maybe someone who doesn't exactly have a crazy amount of armor. So it's another good way just to move an enemy around and really control the battlefield. We're going to pick up Detect Evil and Good. I know we already have that with our Divine Sense, but this is just a larger span and allows us to really focus on a lot more enemies. This is a focus on Elementals phase as well as Aberrations, which aren't necessarily evil or good. So it allows us to detect, honestly, a larger group, which is funny for a spell called Detect Evil and Good. So with our first ASI as a checkpoint, let's see if we are a good spellcaster. And I would say we're so far. We have good reliable cantrip damage with Toll of the Dead, which only gets better at the next level, so not too bad there. We can do decent damage. And of course we can impose disadvantage with Vicious Mockery, not too bad, which allows us to control the battlefield, which we can also control the battlefield with Telekinetic, and that allows us to use our often forgotten bonus action, so we can do that as well. We have the ability to really move things socially with both Charm Person and our Channel Divinity, and of course we got some really good healing options as well. And we do have some decent spells throughout battle that would be like Command, which can shut down an enemy entirely, especially for a turn, and Bless, which is not too bad use of our concentration. We can keep things going, we can keep things moving, and really I do find it to where right now we are pretty much just a bard with a little bit more beef on him. It allows us to control things socially, which is what a bard does, and allows us to use the more tricksy social engineering spells on the battlefield, again, much like a bard. So honestly, not too bad where things are considered. Bards aren't terrible, and the fact that we're just a beefier one, maybe with a little less power in some ways, not too bad of a start. Total level 5, Paladin level 5, let's keep things moving. And this one is a hurtful level. Normally a reason to celebrate whenever you're using a normal Paladin, because this gives us our extra attack, but we're primarily not attacking. So this is where our damage would fall off a little bit. Thankfully, Toll of the Dead does scale up as well as our Vicious Mockery. So we're not really hurting too much, but as a Paladin, it just feels wrong not taking advantage of this extra attack that would be given. And there it is. Enthrall is just one of those spells, like I said, we have to accept, like as a Devil's Tongue Tiefling, which is okay. We really got what we wanted out of it, so we might as well take this another freebie spell. If you find a use for it, go for it. It's another wisdom save that we force an enemy to make, and it's not too bad. but it's one of those things to where it kind of locks an enemy in on you. It's another really good tanking spell, funny enough how that works, but it's just not, it's too expensive. I would say Compelled Duel is a good mix of, like, keep an enemy on you versus Enthrall, but I guess it's more effective. It's more effective, I guess it's more effective. Now we get some pretty decent spells with our Oath of Redemption. We get Calm Emotions, which again can end a combat and really is far more useful in a social setting. If anybody is really mad at you, just chill out, tamper down, don't be like that. You can calm it down, down boy, down, as you can do. And of course we get the nasty hold person. If you are fighting a humanoid creature, lock them down. They can't do anything to fight back if they fail their wisdom save, and I'm sure they can do that at the end of every one of their turns, but we're a pretty darn good spellcasters, so lock them in. We're going to pick up Find Steed, another unique spell to the Paladin. And this is one that is a favorite amongst anybody who plays a Paladin, and really anybody else. It allows you to get a mount for a second level spell slot, and lasts pretty much the entire day. It's honestly one of those things that is pretty darn useful. Always choice, not too bad, especially in both a combat as well as a non-combat scenario. Being able to fast travel everywhere is pretty darn useful. But it does show one of the many weaknesses that we have with this build, in that, again, a Paladin is not a primary spellcaster. It is a half-caster, and the reason why it's called that is because of its slow route to get spell slots, and also because we only get the half of our level, plus our spellcasting modifier, amount of spells. Thus, we have to make a hard choice of swapping some spells out, and I would say we drop Detect Evil and Good. Like I said, we have our Divine Sense. We might as well pick up that for Find Steed, which, trust me, we will enjoy and abuse and use to the best of our abilities. So we might as well take it. Let's go for it. Total level 6, Paladin level 6. We get to a really good level here. This is where people usually aim for whenever they're done with Paladin, want to be rounding up Paladin. And we're definitely going to take a benefit of that. We're going to get the Aura of Protection. Now, whenever an ally with us within 10 feet has to make a saving throw, any saving throw that is, they get a bonus equal to our Charisma modifier, which is pretty darn good, and it's only going to get better as we continue to develop. So that means anybody around us gets a +3 to every single saving throw that they have. This includes Wisdom, this includes Dexterity, this includes the very nasty, if they ever come up, Charisma checks. And that makes us very useful, again, towards the front line, so we're able to protect our most vulnerable allies, especially the Barbarian, from the Wisdom saves, and we're able to do a pretty darn bang-up job just by existing. And that is something unique to us. That is something that I think will, that is something that any other class really doesn't get, so let's take advantage of it. We're going to pick up Aid, which is a fantastic spell, and allows us to choose 3 creatures within our range of 30 feet, and their HP and their current HP, total HP and current HP, go up by 5. This is a good way to bring up 3 allies who may be falling down, or a good way just to, again, bolster the allies up, pump them up, keep them moving. Paladin level 7, total level 7. We're going to keep moving, and we're going to get a good feature, I believe, this time. We're going to go ahead and pick up Aura of the Guardian, which is not too bad. This is a Redemption Paladin feature. If an ally within 10 feet of us take any sort of damage whatsoever, we can take that damage instead. We have a pretty darn good health pool. I believe the second highest HP dice in the game, and a really good Constitution score, so we're able to soak up more damage and really help our allies survive damages that they would not be able to take otherwise. And also, we don't take any extra riders instead, so it's pretty darn good to shut down any sort of crazy spell that would do, nasty damage that has, like a poison or any sort of thing that goes along that way. Total level 8, Paladin level 8. We're going to keep moving, and we're going to get a nice thing here. We're going to get Fey Touched, a very, very good feature that we're going to get. And we're going to bump up our Charisma score, rounding it out. There it is, a +4. Now all our allies get a +4 to every saving throw that's within our radius, and that includes us. And also we get some wonderful spells like with Misty Step through our Fey Touched, which allows us to get in and out of combat or any other scenario that we need. And we're also going to pick up Tasha's Hideous Laughter, another good shutdown spell for our first level spell slot. Makes an enemy fall prone if things work out. I say that's a pretty darn good one. We're going to pick up Warding Bond as our Paladin level spell. Again, the pool isn't exactly too deep, so we might as well take advantage of that. That allows you to, of course, share a ring that you get with an ally. You can give it to an ally as part of the component cost. And you allow them to get a +1 to AC and saving throws within 60 feet, so it could be outside of our aura, and resistance to all damage. That means if you take the damage, you only take half the damage. And also, every time it takes damage, you take the same amount of damage. So you can absorb pretty much all of the damage if you really want. It's not too bad. It's one of those things, again, if you really want to keep an ally safe, this is a great way to do so. So, second A aside. Do Paladins make good spellcasters? I'd argue we're a little bit better. We get, again, our cantrip is still keeping up pace. 2d12 is nothing to sneeze at. We still have our telekinetic. We still have our charm person and channel divinity for our social sort of things. And we bolstered our healing capability with aid. Not too bad. We also have some good shutdown spells with command, hold person, and Tasha's hideous laughter. Bless is still a good spell even at this level. And we got a really good bump to our mobility with Misty Step and Find Speed. Allows us to get out of scenarios and allows us to get into scenarios if we so choose. And Warding Bond allows us to protect, again, squish your allies. But of course, we do have some losses. A little bit of a graveyard of features there, like our Divine Smite and our extra attack. But I'd still argue that we have something unique enough as a spellcaster that we can almost replicate the loss of those. It really depends on what you're looking for, what you're needing, and what you value. And I would say that our controlling options, our healing options, our social scenarios, and of course, a really full benefit of taking advantage of our auras is worth it. But of course, that depends on what the rest of your team has and needs. Total level 9, Paladin level 9, we're still riding. Of course, our features start kind of dipping off here, but we do get access to third level spells. So let's see what we get. For our third level spell, we're going to pick up Revivify. Now, this is a necessary tax for any sort of cleric or any sort of thing. Might as well have it on hand just in case we're the only ones up. We will be taking a lot of damage, but we can choose to take that damage. And if we find that Revivify is a much easier ask than taking the damage ourselves if nobody else has it, you got it. It does come with a $300 tax with diamonds, but in all honesty, we're at the level where that shouldn't be too hard to find, especially at 9th level, so not too bad. I would say we change out maybe Warding Bond. It's a good spell, but we already have a way to take the damage of our allies, so let's go ahead and find a way to bring them up instead. And as you can see with our Oath of Redemption features, we get some bangers of a spell. Most of the reasons why we're here is because of Counterspell, and another one that we'll see in just a sec. You already saw it, but I'm still going to keep the suspense going. Counterspell allows us to shut down any sort of spell that an enemy may cast. We already have a +4 to our spellcasting modifier. So if we have an ability to counterspell, pretty darn useful, especially if the wizard has already kind of used theirs for the turn. We got ability to back them up with it. Good way to shut down any sort of crazy spell. And there it is, Hypnotic Pattern. Again, a wizard tax that you usually take, and you really don't see it too much others except maybe a bard. So again, really doesn't help our benefits there of tying ourselves to a bard. But is a fantastic spell nonetheless. Enemies within a 30-foot cube have to make a wisdom saving throw, and that's it. If they fail, they're out. Unless an enemy chooses to wake them up, then good. So we got ourselves a nutty shutdown spell with that. And again, we also got Counterspell too, which allows us to really help our wizard out and relieving them of some of these spells. It's a pretty darn good time. Total level 10, Paladin level 10, and we're going to go ahead and pick up Aura of Courage. This allows us to can make sure our allies within our 10-foot radius, they get a bonus to their saving throws, and now they can't be frightened, which honestly, again, very debilitating sort of thing. If they force them to run away, spend their action getting away as much as they can, and they can't approach any sort of enemy, we're able to shut that down right away. And a good amount of enemies use frightened as a condition, so we're able to shut that down pretty darn well. If it comes up, it comes up. We're going to go ahead and pick up Dispel Magic. Just again, we're just shutting down spells with Counterspell. Now we're able to get rid of lingering effects with Dispel Magic. Pretty darn useful as we go through. Paladin level 11, total level 11. We're going to go ahead and woe the loss of our improved Divine Smite. Again, you're free to take advantage of it with melee, but I find that our actions are better used with our blessed spells, setting up our other spells with everything else that we've got. Total of the Dead already does a good amount of damage, but we still feel the pain. We still feel the loss. Paladin level 12, total level 12, and we're going to get another ASI. We're finally going to bump up our charisma to 20. Took forever, but we got it. Now all of our allies get a +5 to their saving throws whenever they're around us. Our spells have the highest saving throw possible outside of magic items, and we're able to really take advantage of that stat, really, as it goes. We're going to pick up Crusader's Mantle as a 3rd level spell. We're really rounding the bowl on choices here, not doing too hot. This allows anybody around us within 30 feet to give an extra D4 to their weapon. I don't know why that is. I feel like that's pretty weak for a 3rd level spell. It's a PHB spell, so I guess that's where it is. But still, I guess it's there. It's there. We're offering it to our allies. With another ASI, another question that we got to ask. Do they make good spellcasters now? And I'd say we're tapering off a little bit. I mean, again, we got the nutty spells with Hypnotic Pattern and Counterspell and Dispel Magic, all of which good spells, great spells to have on hand. And our cantrip is up too. We still have the same things that we did before with our telekinetic, our charm person, our channel divinity, and we still have got some really good items to heal. You know, we're not too bad when it comes to that. We're a good mix of things, I'd say. Honestly, a jack of all trades, which again defines the bard. But that is where we are. That is who we are. But again, we also have unique features with our auras. We have unique features with our Find Steed and we got some decent spells where it comes down to it, but you really will be leaning on some spells more than other spells. Paladin level 13, total level 13, we're riding, and we're going to be riding on a Find Greater Steed. Now this just allows us to get ourselves a griffin. This allows us to get us a flying mount that is just fantastic to give us some really over-the-top mobility. I'd say, again, we swap out a spell. Maybe it's Dispel Magic. Maybe anything else that you really find yourself not really leaning on. Choose your options. Choose them well, because you're going to love this as it goes. We're going to get our next round of Oath of Redemption spells. That is going to be Stone Skin and Odaluk's Resilient Sphere. We're going to go ahead and pick up Stone Skin. It's okay. Not really. It's an hour concentration. It costs some money, but it gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. But it's not magic. We're level 13. Enemies are going to have magic weapons, magic spells, magic features. Not too good of a 4th level spell. What is decent, though, is Odaluk's Resilient Sphere. This allows us to create an outer barrier and is pretty darn good. Concentration for a minute allows us to phase out any sort of enemies that keep them away from us, keep them away from any allies. It's not too bad. It can come up. So it's not too terrible. Paladin level 14, total level 14. We get a nice feature here, in all honesty. I think one that goes neglected because of how high it is, but is still not too bad nonetheless. And that is going to be Cleansing Touch. Just use an action, touch an ally, end a spell. Bestow Curse, gone. Any sort of crazy lingering effect, gone. Polymorph, then enemies polymorph on you, or an ally, or enemy even, boom, gone. It's not too bad, and you get it up to your charisma modifier. We get a +5. Might as well keep going. We're going to make a Banishment as a spell. Now, this one is a save or suck. The enemy has to make a charisma save, or they are just gone. And if they're from the other plane, they are gone forever at the end of a minute. It's a good way to take out a really nasty baddie during a battle. So, fits our MO. Total level 15, Paladin level 15, and we're going to keep riding with our Protective Spirit. Now, this one is... I'm not really too hot about it. It's okay where it stands. It allows us to get some good survivability. Every turn, we get our 1d6 equal half our Paladin level if we have less than half our HP. So it's okay. It's pretty much just an extra bolster. You can't be upset. It doesn't cost an action, doesn't really do anything else. You know, I probably am selling this worse than what it really is. It's not too bad. Paladin level 16, total level 16, and we get yet another ASI. We're going to go ahead and either pick up the Tough or the Lucky feat, depending on what you want. As you may see on this channel after a while, I'm a fan of Tough. The ability to bolster our HP, which is arguably one of our very important stats, is pretty darn good. And it's very useful here because we're able to absorb damage from allies, so we have a bigger pool of being able to do so. Or just Lucky, which is just a good general feature that allows you to use your luck die, reroll 3 of them every day. Not too bad. We're going to pick up Locate Creature. Now, this one can be game-breaking to certain DM storylines if they choose to do it. You're trying to find an enemy, somebody who stabbed the king and ran off in the distance. You're able to locate them as long as they're within 1,000 feet of you. It's not too bad. It's good to have on hand. And again, our 4th level pool is kind of weak, so it's the best we got. But now, again, we address the question. Another ASI, another chance to ask. Do they make good spellcasters? It's falling off. It's not doing too good. We still have our great spells, you know, our Hypnotic Pattern Counterspell, and Find Greater Steed is fantastic. Utterly fantastic. Our cantrip just got better, and we have the same issues that we all had before. We're able to shut down enemies. We're able to heal very well. We're able to be a great social mover and shaker. Not too bad. The dead levels are really stacking up, and that you could really feel them between extra attack, between the level that we lost. I believe it was at a level 11, and also we were able to not really take advantage of the Divine Smite features. But we got something. Total level 17, Paladin level 17, and we're going to get our last of the Oath of Redemption spells, which you can see there, pretty darn good. It really put some CPR into what we need into this build. Hold Monster can shut down an enemy if they fail a Wisdom save. Just lock them out. Fantastic. Good stuff there. And Wall of Force is, again, a very common wizard spell that just shuts down an enemy where they can't escape this barrier, or is a good way to separate between you and a whole bunch of enemies. Very useful. Very darn good. Very nice. Good saving grace that we have throughout here. Paladin level 18. Total level 18. This one is one we've been waiting for a while because it improves all of our auras. And instead of making them a wimpy 10 foot around you, 30 feet. Now the party has a much bigger room to breathe. We're able to give our charisma modifier to everybody's saving throws far more reliably. We're able to end the frightened condition far more reliably. And we're able to absorb damage from allies far more reliably. Not too bad. It's a very strong improvement, one that we very much needed. We're going to pick up Circle of Power as our 5th level spell. This one allows us to create a radius around us, another 30 feet. And every ally has advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects, which again, with a +5, now they're pretty much guaranteed to succeed with. So it's pretty darn good. Total level 19, Paladin level 19. We are almost there, but we're going to wrap it up with another ASI or feat. Your choice. I would say maybe we could either bump your constitution here, take a +2, that way we get a little bit more HP, a little bit more support, or I would say either take the tough or lucky feat. Honestly, at this stage of the game, you are free to do whatever you like. Just make sure you like it. That's what matters. And finally, total level 20, Paladin level 20. We did it. We stayed completely in one class the whole time and worked our way up to see if this gimmicky build was in fact worth going for it. We're going to get our final feature for our subclass, which is interesting because Paladin, I believe, is the only one that does that, to where it gets exclusive final abilities, capstone features, for every unique subclass. And that is going to be the Emissary of Redemption. You become an avatar of peace. You have resistance to all damage dealt by other creatures. That includes their attacks, spells, and other effects. They go as far to say that. And whenever a creature deals damage to you, it takes half the radiant damage it dealt. Not too bad. But our conundrum. If you attack a creature, cast a spell on it, or deal damage to it by any means but this feature, then neither one of those work against that one creature until you finish a long rest. So ideally you want to square up with one singular creature. That way if everybody else is doing other things, really it's kind of just a noise to you. You're ignoring it, you're dealing half damage to other creatures around you, but you're focusing on this one person, this one being, that you don't have this online for. It's not too bad, it's kind of interesting. It's a shame that it comes at the very end, because this is something that would completely change a playstyle for a character. It's almost like a sanctuary but on crack. It's kind of wild how that works. But we're going to pick up Gias as our final spell. And finally go Jaboon Wall on the enemies and have a full, complete control over an enemy. We're going to wrap it up here. Final thoughts. Does a Paladin make a good full spellcaster? Here is our total list and our complete stats, as well as every single spell that we pick up. HP does not look too bad. Our skills are a little bit iffy. I chose ones that I could, but not too crazy. I don't believe I even went over them in this video. And our ultimate stats do end up pretty darn optimized, I would say. 4 in Constitution, 5 in Charisma. Not too shabby, not too bad where things are. And again, we've got some good hits with our spells here. So, final question, final thoughts, final bit. Do Paladins make a good spellcaster? I wouldn't say so. It's not exactly any sort of groundbreaking thing. This isn't some sort of new, innovative way to play Paladin from a start. I'm pretty sure people got the idea that it's not exactly a spellcaster class. Again, your slots are mostly used for Divine Smites. But at the very least, we put this out as an option, and we can see that it's not terrible. But it's honestly at the level of an unoptimized bard. You're doing a lot of the same things, but you have some unique features, your steed spells, and the ability that you got auras, as well as the features that we get from our direct choices of Tiefling, and as well as the Redemption Paladin, really do shake out to be a pretty darn good bard wizard hybrid. It's not too bad. We have the ability of the social movement that we always want, that we could always use, especially as a paladin, especially as a charisma-based class. So let's take advantage of that. And of course, we got unique spells with Refined Steed, Greater Steed, and these exclusive spells that you wouldn't find anywhere else unless you're a bard that specifically took magical secrets for that. We ultimately are chunkier than a bard, so we have very minute differences, but not that enough to say that this is something that really revolutionizes the class. Ultimately, you do feel the half-caster spell slots. It is one of those things that is a hindrance, far more of anything. Our ultimate spell slots aren't exactly too crazy. Going back, we get 4 first levels, 3 second levels, 3 third levels, 3 fourth levels, and 2 fifth levels. The Warlock is probably, I would say, the only one who's comparable to the number of spell slots, but they get them back on a short rest. Ours are long rest. So we aren't exactly getting full benefit. And also there's just a bunch of dead levels there. Divine Smite and the improved Divine Smite aren't too useful for us. Extra attack is not that great. There's a literal dead level at level 11, which is wild because we completely single class this whole thing, but because of our restrictions that we were looking for, does not help us out at all, does not play in service. Really, as I mentioned at the top, the Paladin spell list isn't exactly any sort of crazy mover or shaker. Again, it's comparable to the Artificer list, but the Artificer list at least doesn't have any new spells like Paladin does here. Arguably, I would say if you were going to play this, it's neat as a one-shot, or maybe something that you're playing in like the middle tier levels. If you're going from like level, I would say maybe 6 to where you're really on top of the ball, maybe 5, 6, and then on to maybe 11 at the peak. You know, you are missing out on the true great spells that the 5th level redemption will get you, but you are going to be doing some pretty good stuff in between those levels. You've got your auras that are completely unique, and you've got your fantastic shutdown spells, and still have the great social mobility that you expect with a sort of charisma caster. But that'll do it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this thought experiment. Something a little bit different, something a little bit new. I know it's not a direct, build, but it's still a little bit there. It's more of an experiment, an idea. I hope you enjoyed it very much, and I appreciate you joining me on this sort of idea. If you've got any other ideas, I got some that I'm going to be playing around with, seeing if a wizard that is not a blade singer would make a good melee combatant. We'll see. That's, of course, if you do enjoy this sort of deep dive and subversion into classes. I know I'm going to be ruining a lot of people's games as they try to make these work, but just as a thought experiment, why not? Let's take the classes to their limits since we're nearing the end of 5e and see what we can really juice out of them. But I'm rambling. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for spending just a little bit of it with me.